Hello friends and welcome to Knowledge by Nature. In today's video, I want to give you a little flip through of writing and rhetoric. If this is something that you are interested in, I would love if you stick around. All right, welcome or welcome back. If this is your first time here, I am a homeschool mom to a third grader. We love all things books, homeschool, and sharing our journey with you. And if that is something that you are interested in, I would love if you consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up. Writing is something that I have taken a very gentle approach with in our homeschool up to this point. Third grade was something I wanted to start focusing a little bit more on. And I decided to go with writing and rhetoric. The longer I homeschool, the more I kind of am starting to find maybe a style or something. It seems that I may gravitate towards classical approaches. This is by Classical Academic Press, and this is their writing and rhetoric. And so book 1 is Fables. You can see that right here, hopefully, and that is for grades 3 through 4. And then book 2 is Narrative 1, and that is grades 3 through 4. So I will put this right here for a moment if you want to pause it to look at maybe some of those grade levels. I have the teacher's edition right here, and then I have the student's workbook, which is right here. And so they're pretty much identical, actually. I have the full student text in here with some teacher notes in the gray. So there's very, very, very little difference between the two of them. I'll start off with the teacher's manual because it is the one that has the differences in it. We have our table of contents, and as you might guess, this book covers fables. And so the first one we talked about was the lion and the mouse. Then there was the 3 young bulls and a lion, the crow and the pitcher, and so on. Now we are only on lesson 2. We're taking this very slow, but I wanted to just give you a quick introduction to what this is. And that way, if this is something you're wanting to add into your homeschool this year, maybe this would be a good fit for you. There are 14 lessons in part 1, and as you saw that grades 3 through 4, I think they're supposed to do 2 books. Now, I don't know if we are going to do 2 books, but this is what we've got. Because as you know, I also have some Evan Moore that we're kind of working in with this. I have a couple of sticky notes here just for myself, but it talks about a typical teaching week and just gives you an idea of how this could work. We have the option of either a 3 or a 4 school day. And one thing that I did note to myself here is that it says it is recommended that teachers alternate between a course in grammar one week and writing and rhetoric fable the next week. And that is what we have been doing. It's not necessarily that we go on to it the next week, but we do a lesson, and if that lesson takes us 1 week, then we will go to grammar, and I actually use my Evan Moore grammar and my Evan Moore writing during that week that I'm not using this, because I feel like I'm giving her a slightly different perspective on writing by using the 2 programs interchangeably like that. Now, we do not always get a lesson done in 1 week, and I will show you an example of that. But day 1, the teacher is going to model fluency by reading the text aloud, and the student follows along. And so I'll kind of give us an example of that in a little bit. Then this is somewhat rote for what I believe is a classroom setting because it talks about students break off into pairs and reread the text to each other. This is something that you could have them read either to themselves, to a recorder, to another family member, however you want to do that. And then we have a tell it back, which is narration. And so they pretty much tell you the story back. And then we have a talk about it where we're going to, as it says, talk about maybe some of the lessons to be learned, maybe the moral of the story. And then we have a go deeper. All of this is a suggestion for day 1. Day 2 is we can read the text again. So you can have the student read the text this time. You can read it again, however you want. And then this is where they're going to do some writing time. There are little exercises in there labeled writing time. Day 3 or 4 is a time of sharing work with either someone else in the family or a friend, however you would want to do it, but they are encouraged to read their work aloud. And then we have the Speak It section, which create opportunities for students to recite, play act, and share their work aloud. Then we have this little introduction to students, because as I said, these are just really identical with the exception of the gray boxes. Over here, we have our little path on how we complete this series. It says that the Writing and Rhetoric series provides students with forms and models of excellent writing that students can imitate on their path to masterful writing. The first book in the series recovers this proven method of teaching writing, using fables to teach beginning writers the craft of writing well. This is the first in a series of 12 books that will train students over 6 years, starting in grades 3 or 4 and up. I definitely see where it could be an advantage to wait to a little bit older, depending on your student and how much they write and how much they enjoy to write, things like that. So definitely take that into account. Here is a introduction on about the writing. Again, you can pause this and possibly you can zoom it up to read all of this, but this is just different things about how this program is done, how it works, and a note to the teachers. It highly encourages that you read to your children in the earliest days. And that is something that I definitely agree with, is start reading to them. And we do reading all the time. And then it also talks about limiting screens and things like that. So this is just a big note to parents/teachers. This section just tells you about how exactly it's going to work, what things are going to be included, and then here are the different stages of all 12 of those books and how those things will be addressed and what is going to happen with those. The objectives for fables. So for this particular book right here are some of the major objectives and the exercises. First is to expose students to the form of fables as well as culturally important examples. Second is to model fluent reading for students and give them practice reading short text. We're going to give students practice copying text accurately, strengthen working memory through dictation, thus improving storage and manipulation of information, increase understanding of the flexibility and copiousness of language through sentence manipulation, facilitate student interaction with well-written text through questions and answers and through exercises in summary and amplification. Give students opportunities to creatively imitate sentences and whole fables. And then introduce the concepts of main idea and character traits. So I think this is really a great start for learning how to write. And then here we have teaching the fable to the student, which is really about just making sure that the story is the main takeaway. And so the fact that they're hearing this fable, they want to take the skills about thinking and talking and writing about this fable, but ultimately keep it fun, and that is how you will get a good writer for the most part, I think is what that's telling us. So lesson 1 was the fabulous fables, and it talks about what fables are and that they provide kind of a moral lesson, and it's something that's been around for a very long time. Then we go to the Lion and the Mouse, where we would read the fable. Now let me back this up for just a minute and I can show you the student book. I mean, it literally is the teacher's book, but it just doesn't have the little gray boxes. It has all of this teacher information that I just went through with you, the lesson 1, fabulous fables, and then here we are, identical, up into the point where you get over here and you will see some differences. So let me see if I can get this side by side for a moment. This is my teacher's book here on the right. Here's the student book on the left. Here is where we start to see some changes. So you will see TE right here, where it says the TE symbol indicates that there is more information in the teacher's pages at the end of the lesson. Same thing if we look on this page. this page, you will see that there is a TE box over here. Besides that, these are identical. Let's go ahead and look at this first lesson here, which was slightly different than our second lesson. So first you have the tell it back, where we have the student is going to tell me the fable back. So we read The Lion and the Mouse, and they're going to tell it back to me as best as they can. If I need to give her help for this, I have this sentence right here. Here's the first sentence to help get you started. A lion lay asleep in the shady forest, his great head resting on his paws, and then she would pick it up from there. Then we have the talk about it section, which again is going the same day. This is the same lesson, same day. And we're talking about the word fabulous. Now I see that I have a TE symbol here. So I'm going to go to the back of lesson 1, where I will find my TE section. So here's lesson 1. And all of my TEs were here. So number 1, animals that talk and otherwise act like human beings are the main reason fables are hard to believe. So right here, this references back to this number 1. The question was, what are some reasons why a fable is fabulous or hard to believe? And that is where we would, in essence, get the answer for that. Coming to number 2, it was, what do you think would be a good lesson, a good moral to take away from the fable, The Lion and the Mouse? If you needed instructions on this, you can come here, and it's pretty much the answer to these questions in this lesson. Now next we will go deeper. And it says, again, this is all on Go deeper is still a suggestion for on day 1. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to do all of these on day 1. If you've reached the time limit or you've reached the capacity that your child is willing to take in that day, maybe you're only going to do the tell it back and talk about it. So now we're on to go deeper. Always use complete sentences when filling in the blank spaces. So this is a reminder that I'm going to give my student. Number 1, circle the one sentence in the fable, The Lion and the Mouse, that captures its main idea. Little square box is giving me the answer. I go to her book, page 5, and this is where she actually highlighted it. So she came back and she highlighted, now you see that even a mouse can help a lion. Did she get that by herself? No, she did not. Did she get that with some encouragement and help from me? Yes, she did. So we're just starting this. I'm not expecting her to be able to do all of this because, as I said, we did a gentle approach. So work with it the way that you need it for your student. Then we have the which proverb would best serve as a moral lesson. This is where she just circles the answer. Up next is we have a few more questions, 3, 4, and 5, which is, again, something that she does in her book, and my answers are right here. A lot of them would be a sample answer because the student is going to answer in their own words, so obviously it's not going to be verbatim here. Now we're going to go to probably day 2. So let's flip back to this. Day 2. We're going to reread this. Does that mean that I did this on Monday and I did this on Tuesday? No. It's likely I did this on Tuesday and Wednesday or Monday and Wednesday. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually doing these 3 days in a row, but this is the next time that we do writing. I'm going to reread this story, and then she is going to do some copy work. In the space provided, neatly copy the following sentence. That is what she did. Then we go to dictation. So I read the section that I was supposed to read to her. It gave me a big little section here on what this flag meant, and that is all flags on the dictation sections suggest a potential challenge. You should modify this exercise as necessary throughout the book. One simple modification is to make the dictation shorter. So if I turn the page here, you can see that I had 2 options here for dictating to her. So I had either a group of lions is called a pride. What do you call a group of mice? A group of mice is called a mischief of mice. So I read that once, and then I read it again where I said, a group of lions is called a pride, period. What do you call a group of mice? Question mark. A group of mice is called a mischief of mice, period. Now, she needed some help spelling some of those things. I spelled them for her. This isn't spelling practice. So I'm not focusing on her spelling everything right here. So if she asks me, I'm going to give her the spelling. If not, then we're just working on our writing. If I wanted a more difficult, bigger question, if I wanted a bigger, more difficult dictation, I could come here to option 2. If I needed something even smaller for my student, I could have simply done a group of lions is called a pride, period. So I could modify this in any way that I wanted to. Up next, something that she had a lot of fun with was sentence play. So they get a sentence and then they are going to play with that sentence to make it something different. So for instance, we had the lion laughed so hard that the whole ground shook. Can you think what else might happen if you heard a lion laughing? And so here she's going to think of 2 ways to finish the following sentence. Again, the gray boxes give me an example, and I'll just briefly show you what hers was. So, like I said, she enjoyed this. I did not worry about this misspelling. I want her to get original with this writing. We certainly did. And I had forgot about that. Oh my. So she enjoys this sentence play, but I'm not going to grade her yet on this spelling. I'm really looking at the creativity of the writing, which I believe I got there, and also the punctuation. Like, I do want to see that we are ending our sentences with the correct punctuation. Then we have this rewrite section. The fable using a mouse in the role of a strong animal. What sort of weak animal would you need to make the story work? How would the trap be different? So we have this little example. I'm not 100% sure if we were supposed to write anything here. I'm thinking maybe we weren't because there weren't any lines. But she went ahead and she did it. She said a bee helped the mouse get out of the mouse trap. So we had this a weaker animal helping the initial weak animal. You'll see right here on hers, I actually mark day 3 so that we know she can kind of see the finish line with that. I haven't wrote anything in my student book. Now, even though I have that marked day 3, this is actually still the writing portion for the day 2. So if we go back here to this is still the writing time. But I thought that we had kind of done enough for one day, and so then we were going to have to rewrite our own little version of what she had for her idea here. So because I wasn't having her bring this next one over, I put that there. So then she just expounded on the sentence that she talked about the day before, where a bee helped the mouse. And she wrote that out a little bit. As you can see, because I broke it out into more days, I think I got a bigger story. Whereas if I had had her do all of this writing time, I don't think I'd have got much out of her on this. So again, I'm kind of taking my student and figuring out what is best for her. And then we have the speak it section. So after you finish writing, read your fable to a classmate and listen to his fable. How are your fables different and how are they similar? Now, I kind of came up with my own little fable, and so I told her how I would have done it, and we compared. And then she also took the story that she had wrote, and we duoed the grandparents, and she read that to them. You could do that with a spouse or siblings, however you want to do it. And that is the end of lesson 1. For the teacher's manual, again, in the back of the lesson, you're going to get your teacher examples, and you're going to have a big page of notes if you need it. I will say this is taking me just a little bit of time to feel comfortable with. I do have to reference this a lot, like how far do I need to go? But that's with any new curriculum, is you're going to have a learning curve, and that is what I'm dealing with right now. Now, then we had our lesson 2 where we were talking about once upon a time, those famous 4 words. So you have this teaching section here before your next fable. So here we're talking about amplification, which is where we're going to take a story and we're going to make it bigger. We're going to add more details to it. And then we have a summary where we're going to take a big story and we're going to minimize it. We're going to take out all the extras. Instead of being the green fluffy grass, we could be like the grass. And here it gave a little example of the 3 little pigs and how we had an amplification version and we had a summary version. Now she was going to work on this with this fable, The 3 Young Bulls and a Lion. We read the story together. We asked the questions. I had her tell me the story back. We talked about it as far as unity is strength. What does this mean? What were the young bulls so foolish about? And again, all of the answers to these are going to be back in the back right here. So you can see on the talk about section, I had 2 little blocks. Talk about it, 2 little blocks. We go deeper where she's going to read some questions here and put the appropriate answer. She had another few questions here, and then here is a small little writing section that she would have done. How is the personality of the lion in the second fable different than the lion from the first fable? So you can see we're like recalling some of the things that we've already talked about. Day 2 is where we're going to go to our writing time. So she's going to copy. We have some copy work here. She will do that there. And then we have some dictation where I will choose one of the 2 for her to write. Again, modify however you need that to be. We're going to the sentence play. She didn't get quite as creative with this one, but what we're doing is we are taking, it is the same ideas as last time of when the hungry lion came back to look at the bulls, how could we change that up? Instead of he licked his chops, an option was he roared loudly. She put he heard his stomach roar. So depending on what your student is, this is obviously going to be different. This is where we broke out into more days. So we have when you summarize a story, you want to keep it short. Keep only the most important ideas. The rest of the writing can be done away with. So we have this, we're going to read it again, and while we're reading it, you're going to keep your eye out for the main idea. So we went through that, and we were supposed to circle or highlight the main idea. So we did that over here. She highlighted it, and then that way we knew what to do. Again, I can go back here, and you see I have a TE. So number 4, summary. I have some extra information here that I might need. And then this part she wasn't super crazy about. She surprisingly wanted to amplify this day and not summarize. So we did stop where we found just the main idea of this sentence, and then we came back and we worked on this the next day. Now after that, we came in here and we underlined any necessary words, we crossed out words that were unnecessary, and then she had to write, then she rewrote this fable in 4 sentences or less. Then we came to the amplification day where we actually are coming to a different story, and so we are going to read this story of the We're going to read the story, The Hunter and the Doves, okay? It's teaching us the same moral of unity is strength that the same 3 bulls and the lion were. Now she's going to add descriptive details to this story, and we are breaking this down line by line because she wants to really amplify those. And if I have her amplify this all in one day, I don't think she's going to do as well. So to make it easier and to make her think more out of the box, she wants to do a really big sentence, but maybe she doesn't really want to write that big sentence. So we did one day, a flock of doves spotted some seeds scattered on the ground. She chose to amplify that sentence with a flock of white mourning doves spotted some pear seeds scattered on the tall grass meadow bordered with flowers. Now, I would not have gotten that thorough of a sentence, that amplified of a sentence, as I told her to amplify every single sentence here. So we are going one sentence at a time. Is it taking me more than 2 to 3 days? You bet it is. All right, and then we are still working on this. Up next, we would do the Speak It section, where she's going to read her version of the hunters and the doves to me, to my spouse, to her grandparents, or it even says for solo students to record your amplification on a tablet computer or other recording devices to listen to it afterwards. And then she's going to write down what are some of the things that she did to make the story longer. So for example, she made it that they were a specific type of dove and that was a specific type of tree. Things like that she would add to that. That is the end of lesson 2. I think this is just a really good program, and I think she's going to become a really nice writer because of this. I like it. It is taking, like I said, a little bit of time for me to adjust to it. Let me see if there's anything else. There is a rubric back here, so if you wanted to grade their assignment, it gives you some points that you could take off from it and things like that. That's not something I am super worried about right now because we're just learning to write. We will work on I'll get a little nitpickier as we go, but right now I'm certainly not going to be working with this at all because I don't want to discourage her at this point. This, again, it's identical to the teacher's manual. Do you need both? Do you need both? Probably so. If you were going to omit one, I guess you could omit the student book and have your student write in the teacher's book if you weren't too afraid of them seeing the gray sections. I think overall the gray sections are going to make it a little bit better and easier on the teacher, and having these extra examples and the sentences that you need for dictation. I just think in the long run it may be handy to have the teacher's edition, and especially if you're not super confident and familiar with different ways of how to approach writing, I would definitely say get the teacher's edition. For me, I do need this, I think, to make sure that I'm giving her the right prompts. If we're working on writing, I want to make sure that I'm giving her the best option that I can. So again, we rotate this. We do one lesson, whether that takes us 1 week or 3 weeks. We do one lesson, and then I go over to my other writing and grammar, and then we come back to this. Honestly, I have no idea if we'll get through book 2. There's only 14 lessons, but it's hard to tell at this point because of how slow I'm taking it. If you have any questions, comments, please put them down in the comment section. I will try to answer them as best that I can. I hope this was helpful. I think this is a great start for our family for really getting serious about writing, and I like the fable approach to it. It still makes it very fun for her, and she's has no complaints really with this whatsoever, as long as I'm kind of breaking it up the way that I am. I think if I was expecting her to do the whole amplification or the whole summary at once, I believe I might get a little bit of pushback there, but the way that I am slowing it down to meet the way that she needs it done, I think it's working really well. I will definitely do more updates on this as we continue going, but I did want to do a quick flip through and kind of our first initial thoughts on it. So again, thank you for spending some time with me today, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.